everyone, Diana here with Daisy, who's right here beside me. You might see her tail or hear her. It's a little warm out today, so we're sitting under the shade. This is for your weekly messages and perhaps a prediction or two for the week of July the 1st to the 7th. The 1st to the 7th. And we've got a nice cool breeze blowing here that feels pretty good. It's a gorgeous day here where I am, and so it feels, I hope you're having as lovely a day where you are. It feels good to be outside. Anyway, I received a note from one of you that asked me to please explain what love means because it doesn't seem to be working. And they said that the psychics that are predicting unpleasantness, shall I say, are more right on. Okay, it's not me to predict a lot of gloom and doom, but if you want a little gloom and doom, my words, not the writer's. The writer was a little more upbeat than gloom and doom. But you know, what I want to explain, because this writer very politely asked me to please explain what I'm talking about with love, because it doesn't seem to be working, and I want to explain, yes it is. But, you know, in America, we're very impatient. And I'm going to use a globe and another ball in a few minutes to explain why it's working and the bigger picture, what's really going on. And we're going to talk about 5 dimensions. You know, physicists tell us they've discovered 10 to 11 dimensions. We're not going to go that high. We're just going to go up to 5. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. But first of all, let me say, for those of you who celebrate July 4th, happy July 4th, and may you have a wonderful celebration, pool party, watching the fireworks explode, which I always enjoy fireworks. They're beautiful, and getting together in backyard barbecues with your family. We also do want to celebrate Independence Day in this country because we seem to be losing some of our independence. You know, it doesn't take a psychic to tell you that there are going to be riots in the street this summer. It doesn't take a psychic to tell you that Justice Kennedy was going to leave before the election in November. I mean, he was appointed by Ronald Reagan. He's a conservative, even though he was the swing vote on some of the social issues. And he was also, his family has ties with the White House, the family in the White House. And the White House wanted him to leave, and so did McConnell and others, because they want to appoint another justice. Right or wrong, it didn't take my psychic abilities to predict that. It doesn't take my psychic abilities to tell you there are going to be a lot more upheavals in our world, and that is our republic and our democracy at risk as we know it. Yes and no. You know, everything tends to go in cycles, and we miss that in the U.S. We see life as linear, as, you know, this is the beginning and this is the end, and this is what happens in the middle. Many other cultures see life as circular. So life as circular comes back on itself. And that's a hard concept for those of us in the U.S. to grasp. But if we look at our own lives, it's like, okay, I've worked that out, therefore it's done. I should never have to face it again. My friends, if you're still looking in the mirror and someone looks back, there are still things to work through. What we find, though, is that pattern, usually things get a little bit easier, and I think of the circle as myself, I think of it as going higher and higher, lifting our vibration. Remember those words, lifting our vibration, because that's going to be important as we talk about it. So what I want to tell you is, you know, every week there's more chaos. It's wearing us down, and that's one of the most important reasons to stay in love. Another reason is it may not change in the government. I mean, what we're seeing come back around is, what did we think Let's Make America Great Again means. It means back in the 50s when the little wifey met the husband at the door with a cup of coffee when he came home from work, and she was the housewife. She was the mother. She took care of the home. She took care of the social calendar. It means going back to where we didn't have LGBT communities, and in most states being gay was illegal. It means going back to where if a woman needs an abortion, either for health reasons or because she erred and wasn't careful and had sex, or she was raped, it means going back to those days when only women of money can get abortions. That's what Make America Great Again means. It's the cycle coming back on itself. We went through all of this. The advantage of my age is I've seen it all happen, and there's the butterfly coming through to help say hello to us. We've had a few bees come through. I'm sure you can hear the birds singing, I hope. So, yes, I see life coming back on itself in this country. Do I like it? Of course not. I want to linear, where we've already changed that. Leave it alone. But that's not how life happens. The only way we change life is through love. What do I mean by love? Again, love is an action verb. It is not that romantic, okay, I'm in love, this feels great. Love is, if you're an attorney, for example, perhaps you should be working with the ACLU or the other groups that are helping children down at the border and families reunite. Perhaps you should be working in your own community to help the children who need your help, to help immigrants, or to help the children who are going hungry. What can you do to use your talents, your education, your abilities to help the world? And when you act in love. Too many people right now are acting in anger. What does anger get us? Well, you know, the old cliche, like begets like, is true. The old cliche, two wrongs don't make a right. Those are cliches for a reason. If I'm angry at you and I yell at you, what happens? You most likely are going to yell back. If I slap you, you're going to slap back. If I punch you, you're going to punch back. If I knock you to the ground, you're going to knock back. And sooner or later, somebody's going to get a gun. And every week, we hear somebody got a gun. The only thing that's going to change is with each of us to change into love and lead our lives with love. Again, love doesn't mean lack of action. Love means take the action, but take it in love, not anger. Anger may start you out, that's okay. But then move into that place of love. Here's why on the bigger picture it's so important. I want to talk to you about different dimensions. And I want to talk to you about 5 dimensions. As I mentioned earlier, I believe I did anyway, that physicists have found 10 to 11 dimensions, but we're only going to talk about 5. The first dimension is just a dot. It has no depth, it has no width, it's just a dot, no dimension in the first dimension. The second dimension has width but no depth. So it's like a photograph. We can look at a photograph, but we don't see the depth the way we can see depth on a screen, but not on a flat photograph. The third dimension, which is where we all live most of the time, the third dimension can look into the second dimension and into the first, but not into the fourth or fifth. And the third dimension has depth and width and etc. We know what the third dimension is. Now, if we live in the second dimension, those second dimension beings are probably pretty scared of the third dimension. That third dimension is way up there and it's really scary. Same thing when we third dimensionals look into the fourth or fifth dimension. The fourth dimension is time. And in the fourth dimension, in the third dimension, we see our lives this moment, then this moment, then this moment, then this moment. In the fourth dimension, we're seeing our entire lifespan from birth to death, and we see it all at the same time. So we really understand that there is no linear time. That's just, it helps us communicate. I'm going to see you tomorrow for lunch at noon. We can communicate. But Einstein tells us there's actually no time. but we see time. And again, we see time as linear. But in the fourth dimension, we're seeing time as all happening in the now. So we can see our entire life. Now, the fifth dimension, that one gets a little even stranger for many people. In the fifth dimension, we can see all of our lives. We see all time. We see every single life we've ever lived. So we can, for example, in 7 dimensions over, I'm a ballerina and I travel around the world and dance and write my memoirs. In another dimension, I may have 5 children. In another dimension, I may live in New York City. So I can see all those different dimensions if I'm in the fifth dimension. Now, that said, hold on to that because I'm going to make it even more difficult to really understand. But I'm trying to be as simple with this as I can to explain very difficult and complex issues or dimensions, shall we say. Now, if I can see all of these different dimensions, because if I think about every major decision that we make in our lives, there's an alternative us living in this other world, so to speak. So for every major decision that Diana made, this Diana 13 worlds over is living the opposite decision. And I can work with her, she can work with me to bring in healing or whatever it is I need for the present in this third dimension world. The third dimension can't necessarily see into the fifth dimension unless we raise our vibration to where we can work in the fourth and fifth dimension, and that's what love does. Think of, maybe it's the difference between a paperback and a hardback book, or when we're angry, our vibrational rate is very low, and you can see Daisy behind me here, she's out walking around. But our vibrational rate is very heavy. As we move more and more into love, our vibrational rate lifts. Now think about that. When you are in a place of anger or fear, you feel physically heavy. When you're in a place of pure joy, and that's not always easy to get to, but we all have those occasional moments where we move into that place of sheer, perfect joy. I often get it living here where we live. When we move into that, colors are brighter. We feel taller. We feel lighter. We have moved into another dimension if we can, with that vibration going up. So I want to show you what's happening. And I'm going to use this ball, and I'm going to use this globe of the stars to illustrate what I'm talking about. A few years ago, I started seeing, let's pretend this is the planet. This is the planet Earth here. And a few years ago, I started seeing a penumbra come out of the planet. I'd look at Earth and I would see this. At the time, it was just about that big. But over the years, it keeps getting larger and larger and larger. I'm not seeing the whole planet yet, but I am seeing it at about that size right there. Now, that said, what I'm talking about here is, imagine if this white ball represents the fourth and fifth dimensions. This represents the third dimension. And what we're doing is moving from the fourth and fifth, or from the third dimension into the fourth and fifth. I think it's an identical world to Earth. I think we're just using that vibration to create this new dimensional planet, this new planet that looks like Earth, that we talk like we're on Earth, that everything seems the same. We may live in the same houses. Everything may seem the same, but we're at this higher dimension, and we can feel that higher dimension. We can experience the love that higher dimension is. That's the love, my friends, I'm talking about. And it's a much deeper love than we've experienced. But it begins with those small actions those small steps. You know, as Americans, we want it all at once. We want to know what's going to happen. We want to turn it around immediately. The turnarounds can take many, many years. But in the meantime, the more of us who move into that fourth and fifth dimension are creating more love for this dimension. And as we move into this greater dimension, it changes the third dimension. And eventually, all of us will be in that fourth and fifth dimension. But in the meantime, there will be a split. And so those of us who are capable of living in the fourth and fifth dimension will still be in the third dimension to help out the third dimension, to help the third dimension move into the fourth and fifth. On a very practical level, even if whatever I've said, you're saying, oh, that's a little crazy. On a very practical level, all the craziness that is going on in our country, in the U.S., and in the world today, we have to stay in a place of love, or we will go crazy, or we will get ill. So when we move out of that space of love, bring yourself back into it. It's not always easy, believe me. And again, love is an action verb. What can you do today to make you feel better about your life? What can you do today? And I'm watching a couple of butterflies up there flying around. What can you do today to make our world better? Your personal world and our greater world. By the way, if you want to know more about the dimensions on my newsletter, I'll be putting that out Saturday afternoon. And it comes out every month. And I will go ahead and put that on the website, which is below. Let's take a moment and see what Philip has to say. This is an oracle book given to me by Philip, who is my guide in the spirit world. And I want to thank you for all your comments. And I thank all of you for coming and coming back and telling your friends. I thank you all for subscribing, those of you who do. And I thank those of you who are new. Thank you for coming. Our oracle book simply will give us something on each page. It was an opening, so I'll just open it there to show you that each page has a different wisdom on it. And so we just flip through until we hear stop or feel it, the pages don't move for us, or whatever stops us at that page. So we have to think left page or right page. So you ready? We're going to think left page or right page, and then we're going to flip through. And we seem to be stopping right there. I'm hearing right page, but I'm also going to, of course, read the left page too. So right page says, where love can enter, love already is. Where love can enter, love already is. Oh, my friends, that means you already have love. All you have to do is let it out. You know, this past weekend, I had a wonderful discussion with a friend who voted for Trump and her husband, who is very much a Trump voter. And we had this wonderful discussion. We met for lunch. After lunch, we were in such a good discussion, we went for coffee or tea and continued the discussion for another couple of hours with respect for one another. If we're always trying to get our point of view across, even if we're right, the other person can't hear us if we're yelling. We have to speak with respect. We have to speak with civility. But that civility and respect don't negate speaking out. They don't negate speaking back. It's how we speak. And I'm all for, there are times we may have to shout, but then when we get your attention, we're not going to tell you how wrong you are. We're going to ask you to listen to us, and we will give you the respect of listening to you. So remember, where love can enter, love already is. Let's just expand it. On the left side, this is interesting. Before you can learn what is real, you must let go of that which you think is real. Before you can learn what is real, you must let go of that which you think is real. You don't think this is real? You got to let go of that thought in order to experience it. You don't think the fourth and fifth dimensions are real? You got to let go of that thought before you can experience it. Science tells us everything is energy. They're catching up with what we believe. In fact, last night I was talking to a friend who's a scientist, who's a chiropractor, who's very much into the science, and he was telling me about how science in the medical field, in the medical world, is catching up with those of us who have been saying everything is energy. Science has been saying that too. So if everything is energy, that means energy has a certain vibration. What is yours? Make it love. Not the romantic. I mean, if you want to go fall in love and have a romance, great. But I'm talking about a deeper love, and I'm talking about a love of action. Thank you for being with us today, my friends. I'm so grateful you are. Daisy and I love you, and we thank you for accepting that love. Until next week, love. It's the only answer. Like begets like. Thank you.